Have you ever found yourself fighting against something that has already happened? Replaying it, wishing it were different, asking why it happened, maybe blaming someone else, or even blaming yourself. But the reality is, it has happened, or perhaps it is happening right now. And at some point, we have to ask ourselves, how much of my energy am I using fighting against something that is already here? Because accepting what we cannot change doesn't mean giving up. It doesn't mean that we agree with what happened, and it doesn't mean that there's nothing we can do. It means first being willing to recognize what is here. And then you can ask yourself, how do I choose to meet it? How do I go forward? So today, I want to explore how accepting the reality of where we are can actually help us move forward, and why I believe that sometimes takes a quieter kind of bravery in doing that. Welcome to Pilgrim of the Path podcasts, Reflections for a Soulful Life. My name is Thomas, and today I want to talk about accepting what we cannot change, moving forward, and that kind of bravery that this can sometimes ask of us. When we hear the word bravery or being brave, we often think about something big, something radical, like leaving a job, making a major change in your life, taking a risk, or even confront someone, standing up for ourselves. But there's another kind of bravery that perhaps nobody else even sees. And this bravery to look honestly at what is happening in our own lives. And also to look at how we are interacting with what is happening. Because when something difficult happens, our attention often immediately moves outward. We might look for someone to blame. We might wish the situation were different. We might push it away. We might try to ignore it. Or we might just start searching for someone else to tell us what we should do. And sometimes we just spend too much energy in asking what is happening or why, not what, but why is this happening? And then we miss something very simple. The fact that it is happening. Here it is. The situation is right here, right now. And whatever has brought us here, whether we wish it happened differently or this is the moment we have to work with, right? It's in front of us. And perhaps the first act of bravery is simply being willing to acknowledge and recognize that. Now, maybe acknowledge that. And because acceptance is not the same as giving up. And I think this is where acceptance is often misunderstood. When we hear you need to accept it, it can sound like we are being told to simply put up with something, to become passive, to do nothing, or perhaps even to say that what has happened, it's okay, it's fine. But that is not what I mean by acceptance. Acceptance, in this sense, is simply recognize the reality of this moment. This is what is here right now. I may not like it, like I may wish it was different. I may even decide that something needs to change. But first, I have to be willing to see what is actually here, because only then can I consciously, mindfully decide, what am I going to do with it? Am I going to constantly push it away, blame someone, resist it, pretend everything is fine? Then, you know what? Then I am still caught in the reaction of the situation or to the situation. But when I acknowledge what is here, the question begins to change. Instead of only asking, why is this happening? You can start to ask, how am I going to meet what is happening? And here we have the opportunity to choose how we're going to move forward. Accepting where you are helps you see what you can do next. So sometimes there are things we simply cannot change because it has already happened. Someone has made a decision, something has ended, a situation has changed, and these are the effects of that um, uh, thoughts or the decisions that have been made. So we can't go backwards and rewrite what has already happened. We can't do time travel. But accepting what has happened doesn't mean that we have no choice about what happens next, about the future. In this moment, we still have a choice. We have the opportunity to look at what is happening, to see what this experience might be showing us, teaching us, to notice our habits, our habitual reactions, and then we decide, then we choose. Like I said, as consciously and as mindfully as we can, how do we move forward, and asking, what is actually within my control? What choice do I have in this moment? How do I want to show up from here? And this is where acceptance becomes active rather than passive. We stop trying to change what has already happened, and we begin to work with a moment and the teachings of that moment that is in front of us right now. And I know reacting is much easier. Therefore, I think it takes courage, because reacting is easier. Our habits already know what to do. We know how to protect ourselves, how to defend and withdraw and blame and become angry, push away. And through our habits, we repeat the same patterns that have become familiar to us. And it kind of like becomes a little hamster wheel, right? It just goes on and on and on and on. Sometimes the reaction happens so quickly that we don't even realize we had another choice. So our programming takes over, our beliefs. So pausing and taking a moment asks something different of us. It asks us to stay long enough to see, to recognize, this is what is happening. Before immediately deciding what it means or what we are going to do about it, just pause. And that pause creates something important. That creates space. That creates an openness. Acceptance creates space. When we stop using all our energy fighting against the fact that this moment is here, we create a little bit more space within ourselves. We create an openness. And in that openness, in that space, there is room to choose. And yes, we can still experience all those emotions. We can still be upset. We can still be uncomfortable. But we can still decide that something needs to change. But now we are no longer acting entirely from our reactions, our habits, but we are responding more consciously, more mindfully. And perhaps this is where a certain kind of inner peace and harmony begin. Not because everything around us has suddenly become peaceful, we have become peaceful. We have created that harmony within us. We are no longer constantly at war with what is happening because we have acknowledged this is what is here and how do I meet it. So, over time, I believe this can change the way we experience life itself, become more spacious, and become more confident in our ability to meet difficult situations. Because we begin to discover that we don't have to be controlled by every single immediate reaction. But don't take my word for it. Look at your own life. Think of a situation where you reacted almost automatically, becoming defensive or blamed someone, or you withdrew or you pushed this situation away. And ask yourself, how did I feel afterwards? And then think of another situation, one where you were able to pause and you didn't really necessarily respond perfectly. The situation may still have been difficult, but you gave yourself enough space to see what was happening before deciding what to do next or react. So, what was different? How did I feel about myself afterwards? And which response left me feeling more settled within myself? Which response gave me more confidence in the way that I showed up, not only for myself, but also for the people around me? And don't look for the answer you think you should have. Take your time and look at your actual experience and compare the two for yourself, those two situations. Because you have to discover this for yourself. I don't want to give you the answer to those questions. It's your life. You need to find your way. Nobody's going to do it for you. You have to discover your way of moving through it, moving forward. So experiment, pay attention, be aware, and look at your own experience. Notice what happens when you actually pause and then respond, or when you react automatically out of habit. And notice what happens when you create enough space to choose. Which way of meeting life creates more harmony for you? Which helps you trust yourself more? And which leaves you feeling more at peace with the way you showed up? Find out for yourself. Because perhaps moving forward isn't always about immediately knowing what to do next. Maybe there needs to be some reflection. And sometimes the first step is simply just to stop fighting against where we already are. So perhaps bravery is not always about doing something extraordinary. Bravery can be simply being willing to stop looking a certain way out of habit and to turn around and to acknowledge this is what is here. How do I choose to go forward? What's my choices? Am I going to choose something different this time? So perhaps this week, if you find yourself facing something uncomfortable, notice if you immediately notice if you immediately begin fighting against the reality of what is happening. And then because you know what, you don't have to solve everything in that specific moment. Just plant the seed, and it will happen over time to start seeing clearly what is here and how do I go forward. Because we may not always be able to change what has already happened, but the way we choose to meet this moment is where moving forward begins. Thank you for spending this time with me and listening to me. And until next time, take good care of yourself. Be kind to yourself. Be kind to all those around you. And we will connect again next week. Namaste.